Using integer tiles is a good way to model addition and subtraction of integers. So we're just going to take a look at how that would actually work. Here you can see that I've got a little yellow square with a plus sign on it. And then down below, I have a number line. So this little plus, this little square, and it doesn't have to be a square. In the lessons it's demonstrated as a circle, but it doesn't matter as long as it has the same meaning. So anytime you see this, it will represent 1 on the number line, so it would represent this down here. So one integer tile, one positive integer tile will represent 1 on the number line here. And likewise, 3 positive integers will represent 3 on the number line below. So here we have 3 positive integers, and that would just be represented by 1, 2, 3 right here on the number line below. Now likewise, we can have negative integers. As you know, the number line doesn't stop at 1. It extends in both directions forever. So we're going to have some numbers on this side. So we're going to represent those with a negative integer tile that looks like this. So in this case, the negative integer tile is red, and it has a little negative sign in so that we can distinguish it from the plus sign. So again, you can use any two different things, one to represent the positive and one to represent the negative. So on the number line down here, it's going to be represented right here by -1. So I'm just going to write that in. So here on the number line would be -1. If I had two integer tiles, and they were both negative, two negatives would be 2 spaces away from 0, or 2 numbers away from 0. As we go this way on the number line, the numbers get smaller, and as we go this way on the number line, the numbers get larger, but they're just the same. So we'd have -1, -2, -3, -4, etc. So we can represent positive integers and we can represent negative integers by using the integer tiles that you see here. Sometimes called algebra tiles too, because we're going to use them for algebra later on. So what would these 5 negative integer tiles represent? Well, they would represent -5. So you can think of it again on the number line. So down here on the number line, that would be over here somewhere, -5. So there's 5 of them. They're negatives, so it represents -5. Now, what do you think you would have if you had something like this, one negative and one positive? So here we've got one negative integer, one positive. -1, +1. What do you think these together would represent? Any ideas? Well, because you've got one negative and you've got one positive, they kind of cancel each other out, and they're left in the middle here, 0. So one negative and one positive represent the value of 0 on the number line. And this is called a zero pair. One negative, one positive together is called a zero pair. And there are an infinite number of zero pairs in the world. So you could have 3 zero pairs, and that would still represent 0. So 0 plus 0 plus 0 is still going to be 0. So no matter how many zero pairs you have, it still has a value of 0. So let's just see if that makes sense. So I've got here, what's the value of what I've got here? I have +3. So the value of what I've got here is +3. And what happens if I add a zero pair? What value do I have now? Well, because the zero pair has a value of 0, my value of all of these tiles together is still +3. So I can keep adding however many zero pairs I want, but my value would still be +3. So what's the value of the tiles you see on the board here? We've got some positive, some negative, 4 positives and 3 negatives. So the first thing we do is pair up a positive and a negative into a zero pair to see how many of those we have. So I'll just move this one over here and this one over here so that you can see we've got 3 pairs, 3 zero pairs. And what are we left with? The value of this, all these tiles on the board, is +1. So that's the value of them. So whenever we're dealing with tiles, you need to think about what the value is. And if you can pair up 0 pairs, then basically it just eliminates them. It's like adding a whole bunch of zeros. So our value is what we're left with after we pair up the zeros, and we have a positive 1 here. So that's how we model integers, both negative and positive, using the integer tiles or algebra tiles. So you need to either get some or make yourself a set, whichever fits your situation. And as you go through the lessons, use them to help you figure out the examples that are given.